ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
This is the Dragon's Lair, in association with the Riverside Sports Bar Newport, an American-style bar with a proper Welsh feel.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon's Lair podcast in association with Riverside Sports Bar, the home of live sport and great food in Newport. So, when I said last week we were doing no more pods? Well, by popular demand, we're doing another one. So just think of this as a Brucey bonus. So Gavin Thomas is with me for this one. Hello, Gav. How are we?
I'm very well, Jamie. Very well.
Yeah, when I said it was going to be our last pod, you didn't believe me, did you?
I said on the last pod that we'd be back within 2 weeks.
Yeah, you were right.
And I didn't want to say I told you so. So I was I was holding fire.
Yeah, you were right. You are right. Fair play. So this is a bonus podcast, as I mentioned, because we've had a lot of requests from our listeners to get this particular person back on the pod. And I'm pleased to say, winning his second cap on the Dragon's Lair is Dragons co-owner David Buttress. David, how are we?
Good, thanks, Jamie. Nice to see you, Gav. How are you?
I'm very well, David. Lovely to have you back on.
Yeah, good to be back. It's been a quiet few weeks in Welsh rugby.
As always.
There's never a dull day in Welsh rugby, is there? Let's be honest. Oh, dear. Okay, let's get into it then. So let's start by looking back on the season just gone. So as we all know, David, it was a disastrous season for the Dragons. Just 2 wins in all competitions. The league table doesn't lie. Since regional rugby was formed, Dragons became the first Welsh region to finish bottom of the league. We finished a whopping 20 points behind Zebra, meaning Dragons have equalled the record with Zebra back in 2022 for the worst ever URC season with just 9 points. Injuries played their part, of course, and our injury crisis was largely overlooked by the Welsh rugby media. But unfortunately, as we can probably admit, many of the Dragons' performances were disappointing and below par. So as a co-owner, David, what's your overall assessment on that season just gone?
Yeah, I think it's been a shocking season. If you'd asked me last summer or after the first couple of games, Ospreys or Sharks, I would have said, I can't envisage this season. I wouldn't have seen it. But the table doesn't lie. I don't think the table lies. And I think I'm not a big believer in putting veneer on things. I'm a big believer in saying that when you haven't done good enough, you haven't done good enough. And I think the season goes back to last summer. I think our recruitment was poor. Players who we signed, paid a lot of money for, just haven't played or not been fit. And I think so a lot of it goes back to that, but not just that. And I think that ultimately sits with the owners, actually. So I don't think that sits with coaches necessarily or players. So I think we as owners learned a lot last summer. We just bought the club. I think the only way to describe this season is shockingly bad, and it can never be like this again. I didn't see it coming, genuinely, especially after the Ospreys game. I thought we might win 3 or 4 out of the first 5, but the 20 points thing that you say, Jamie, that's a long way off, right? That's a long way off competitive. And nobody has the right, I think, to make excuses out of that. I mean, candidly, I didn't go to our awards dinner the other night. That's the first time in 7 years I haven't gone. I didn't go because of any other reason. I just didn't want to be there. I just didn't think it was good enough what we did this year. And I couldn't sit there and sort of smile and clap, and not because I don't appreciate everything people have done through this year, because that would not be true and that's not who I am. But I just couldn't go. My wife actually said I was being super miserable, but I just thought that's not good enough. So I actually didn't go. And part of me sort of wrangles with myself a bit about that, because I wanted to go and say thank you to a lot of people. But at the same time, I think if you win one game, perhaps there's part of me that thought as well, we should have cancelled it, or but maybe that wouldn't have been the right thing either, and I'm being too miserable. But yeah, it's been a season that can't be repeated. And the reason why I say that is about culture as well, because if you're in a professional sports team and you win one game, that that just can't be good enough. And that starts with the owners and goes through. Um, yeah, yeah, this has been, for me, I know we've had tough seasons since,
Yes, many.
last year was tough, buying the club was tough, nearly going out of business was tough. But in a weird way, for me, the last 12 months has been the worst.
Yeah, it's very honest of you, David. So, look, I'm not gonna lie, it was hard work watching the Dragons this season. It was hard work talking about the team on this pod, David, week in, week out. We don't help ourselves. Same errors being made every game. Lack of leadership, poor discipline, the lack of a reliable goal kicker cost us games. Can I ask, David, what annoys you the most when you watch the Dragons, particularly the season just gone? What frustrates you when you watch this team?
Yeah, probably two things. Like, if I think about the big thing that we talked a lot about as owners and with the coaches a year ago, we talked about we lost a lot of games by one score, and about having a clutch finisher and having a clutch kicker and a sort of a clutch finisher, as you might say in US sports, and we never addressed that. And we also said we didn't have a gain line. We needed to improve gain line. And I feel like we wasted a year because we didn't fix either. Um, so that's probably the big two things. And I think that cost us a lot this year. Because if you look at, especially the first 5 or 6 games when we had a chance to build momentum after the Ospreys fixture, we had a chance to win. I mean, it feels like a long time ago now, but we had quite a few games where we could have won. They were literally one scorey, last minute we lost the Sharks. They were tight. And we talked a lot about addressing that. That was about having a ball carrier that gave us gain line, and about having a kicker that was a clutch kicker. And and they were the two big objectives in recruitment. And if we're honest, we didn't address either. So I think they're probably the two things that frustrated me the most, because they were kind of like to kind of Donald Rumsfeld quote, and known.
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
they were a known, and we thought we'd addressed them and we didn't. And
So yeah, I was just going to ask that, David. So, like, kind of go back to the start of the season. Did you think you had addressed that?
yeah,
Did you think Lloyd Evans, assuming you're
yeah,
talking about him, and Solomone Funaki were the players who were going to do that?
yeah, but I sort of yes, yeah, I did, Gav, and but I look back on that now and kind of annoyed with myself, because I don't think, and this is where owners have to, in the end, you have to own it, because actually I don't like the phrase own it because it sounds a bit like a businessy.
No.
You have to take responsibility, because I didn't do my own due diligence enough, Gav, and I think, like, I should have. If I go back to my business life, if I was making an investment into, 2 or 3 key decisions that were going to be really critical, I would be all over the detail on that. And I think in professional sport, you automatically think that you, as an owner, you invest the money, you support the financials, and there's people around you that are doing the same level of due diligence. And the truth is, they weren't. And I don't think we'll ever make that mistake again as owners. I really don't. I think, that, and by the way, that's our fault as owners. That's not anyone else's fault. That's our fault, and that's my fault. And I, in a weird way, I think I love the Dragons, but sometimes caring about something's not enough. You have to actually, that has to translate into sort of doing something. And I think that the two big things I've learned, I love the Dragons, which is a good thing, as in we took the responsibility to buy the club and take it private and make sure it survived. But actually, the second thing we did do, love also means you make sure it does the best it can do. And I feel like last year I didn't get into the detail enough of, well, why are these 2 or 3 decisions going to be really make sure that we actually improve enough? Because, and I don't think I did that homework, and I regret that. I really regret that. And I think our recruitment this year has been a lot better, but I feel almost like we lost a year. And as a result of losing a year, I feel like we lost a bit of confidence with people that we never should have lost confidence from. If I look at some of the stuff from supporters who I feel like we lost a little bit of goodwill with some people that I don't think we'd lost goodwill with if we'd have been a bit sharper last summer, is the truth. But hopefully people can see we take it on the chin, and we genuinely have tried to get recruitment super right as best we can for this coming season. And I feel very cautiously optimistic that our recruitment is a ton better than it was last year. And I think hopefully that stands us in good stead for the coming 12 months.
Yeah, recruitment does look a hell of a lot better.
It feels better, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's like kind of proven names, and we understand, I suppose, the thinking a bit more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. David, do you remember after Judgment Day, we had a chat on the train?
Mate,
And
I remember everything. Yeah.
yeah, so we were quite frustrated after that Scarlets game, wasn't we?
I was ready to cry on a Great Western Railway service, not
Yeah.
because of the service. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a game we should have won, and we let it slip. And I remember you saying to me that you said to your kids that we were going to lose this. I think you said to me, it was 20 minutes left, and you said to me, I said to my kids, we're going to lose this. And lo and behold, we did. I always remember you saying to me as well, we spoke about the team and the mentality, and you said to me, we lack the top 2 inches. And I think that's what everybody can agree on. The question is, how is that going to be addressed next season? Because even the chairman, David Wright, told us, supporters, at the Q&A, he said, and I quote, I've asked if the players need psychological support because winning is a habit and so is losing. We need to change the mindset. So how do Dragons change the mindset, David? Because we all know now that the Dragons have a mentality issue. How are we going to solve it?
Yeah, I feel a little bit different about this because I said I knew we were going to lose, and I did know we were going to lose because I've seen the pattern before, and I think life is about habits and good habits and bad habits. And as good as we were in parts on that day, we don't believe it. We don't believe it, I believe. And that's a terrible thing to feel as a supporter. And first and foremost, I'm a supporter. And I just knew, I just knew, like you could.
We all did, David. That's the problem. All the supporters knew.
You just knew the guys would. It was almost like we'd find a way. We were like, like how many points up were we at one point? We were like, was it?
We were 20 points to 7 up
I was
at
going
one
to say
point.
it was like 14 points or something, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, at 14 points up, what do? You make it really hard for the opposition to get, but they got to chase the game because it's more than one score. We've all watched a lot of rugby, right? We know how it works. Once you go one score, the opposition has to chase. Once they have to chase, they make mistakes. When they make mistakes, you punish them, and they compound the error, and you score again, and all of a sudden they're 2 scores, and the game just drifts away from them, right? That's what good professional sides do. Except when we're 13, 14 points up, we don't have confidence, so we panic. So we actually go in the opposite mindset, which is they'll score next. And I actually said to the guy I was there, it was actually an English guy who's never seen us play before, but he's a big rugby fan. He coaches my lads' rugby team. And I said to him, Richard, what's going to happen now is the opposite of what you think is going to happen. What should happen now is if we score next, this game's done. But if they score next, we'll go into reverse. And they scored next and we went into reverse. And so I didn't say it in any sense of pride or pleasure because I wanted us to win. It's just because I was frustrated with what I knew what the movie. It was like watching a movie where you've already seen the ending. You're like, I don't want this to be the ending, but I know this is going to be the fucking ending. And I was like so like irritated. that was going to be the case. So the question is, what do you do about it? You have to take responsibility again as owners and say, well, we've created this environment and we've created this situation. So what do? You need players. You need to do two things. One is you do need to shift players out that are clearly caught in bad habits, and this is the culture of the place we're in. And secondly, you need to bring players in that have come from environments where the opposite is true. So they know what good looks like and they know how to close out situations, because that's the only way you can really move it forward, other than to make excuses for it. And there's just no excuses. We're in the business of professional sport. And if in the business of professional sport, you have to win. So you just have to win. So it's just not acceptable. And I feel like the Dragons has got itself caught in this mindset of it's okay to lose, and it's not okay to lose.
No.
It's just not okay. So I think hopefully the players that people are seeing are starting to recruit and bring in, they come with a mindset that is different. They come with a mindset that it's not okay to lose. And I do think there's one other small thing. We need a leader. I really feel like the leadership on the field, there's something missing for me.
Yeah.
If I go back to watch the best Newport teams I watched when I was a kid, or the best Pontypool teams I watched, mostly Pontypool teams, if I'm honest, as a kid, then they had really good captains, and I feel like a little bit we lack a little bit of leadership in key moments on the pitch. So I feel like we need a bit of that as well, because there's sometimes in a game and in business or in life when things are getting away from you, and you need people, and they're not like they don't grow on trees, but there's one or two people that in
No.
situations they just go, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Follow me, and I'll lead us through this tricky 5-10 minutes. And I feel like sometimes we seem to lack a little bit of that for me. So when it starts to go wrong, it just all goes wrong, and nobody seems to be able to grab hold of it. So I think there's a little bit there for me as well.
You made a reference earlier to like American sport about clutch athletes. I'm a big baseball fan, and in baseball, guys who earn huge money are closing pitchers who might only pitch 10, 11 pitches in an entire match, but they're there to stop teams winning. And it's all about like that mentality. And that's, you're absolutely right. We don't have those guys, do we? We don't have the closing pitchers. The ones will be like, all right, let's stop this. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
And
been a
you
couple of
spoke a lot
games.
about
There's
it,
been a
Gav,
couple
haven't
of games this season, right? I can't remember the game exactly. I should know it off the top of my head, but um, there's a game where we hit the post with a kick and it was right in front, and I'm like, oh no, we haven't really done that, have we? Or we had a penalty where it was banged down the middle and we've kicked it wide left.
Yeah, a few of those.
Yeah,
Ulster was one of those.
Ulster, yeah.
Ulster, right? Ulster's a great
Yeah.
example of Ulster comes to mind. And and as sentimental as you can feel about it, whether they're players that my kids love all our players, and my kids obviously are crazy Dragons fans, and they as much as anybody. But I guess over the last 5 or 6 years, I've become a bit more clinical about it, which is that you know there are players that win you games and players that lose you games, and in those moments, I'm afraid, at the top level of sport and at the top level of business, your career is defined. And if you can't finish those moments, you probably shouldn't be in those moments. And as hard as that sounds to say, as brutal as it sounds, you know, I'm probably come a little bit harder over the last 2, 3, 4 years, in the sense that that's just not good enough. It's just not good enough, and we can't, as Dragons owners, forget supporters. I mean, I'm a supporter, but I guess I'm an owner. I am an owner too. It's just we can't accept that. And again, go back to the point. That's why I didn't go to the awards dinner. I don't want to go. I don't want to go and associate and condone a season where we win one league game. That is a disgrace for me. It's just not good enough. And missing kicks in front of the post, not good enough. Hitting, it's just not good enough. And if it was Just Eat, my old business, I would let people go for that. I would be quite ruthless, to be candid. I'd be like, guys, if we're losing the competition, I'm sorry, but you can't be here anymore, because we're not going to have a business that's going to survive. And perhaps there's part of me that is, as you can probably sense, is that I definitely feel responsible for it, but it has to change. It just has to change. Because what are we going to say in a year, by the way? If I step back from my own emotions about it, or your emotions, Jamie, or your emotions, Gavin, about how frustrating the season has been, what's our right to exist in 1 or 2 years if we win like one league game? What's our right to exist? What are we going to say? Well, Gwent Rugby historically used to be great. Yeah, that's true. I don't disagree. I used to watch Gwent Rugby when it was great under Poddy Pool or whatever. But you can't just live off that. We have to win our own games. We have to make our own history. And so, yeah, we have to accept that what we're currently doing is not good enough and has to change.
That's Welsh rugby's problem, though, isn't it? It's not just the Dragons' problem. We used to be like this. Yeah, well, that's great, but we need to think about what we like right now and what it's going to look like in the future. Because I talk about rugby in the 70s and 80s, and my son looks at me like I'm absolutely insane. It's not important. Now we have to think about what rugby looks like right now and what it will look like in 10 years' time.
No,
2012 and
absolutely.
2013 was good, man, and 2015 and 29 and 2008 and 2005.
Well, there has been great seasons, there has absolutely been great seasons. I think it's not a Dragons thing, it's just Welsh rugby. It's like, oh, well, remember this and remember that. Different game, different time. Let's think about now.
I actually think, right, you guys are going to think I'm mad now. I think 2008 to 2019 was one of the best Welsh rugby eras ever. I think we had a
Oh,
group.
yeah.
I think we had a group of players which we'll look back on in 10, 20 years. It was truly, truly exceptional.
It was generational, if you consider who played for Wales during that time. Yeah, and if you think about the 2013 Lions tour, how many were in the last test? 11 players.
Is that right? Was it 11?
I think in the last test, it might have been 10 or 11.
No, I'm not sure, but yeah, you are
Of the
right. I mean,
23.
yeah, Grand Slams, Championships, World Cup semi-finals, Lions tours. Yeah, you're probably right, David. That probably was the best era for
I,
Welsh
I
rugby.
remember I remember going to the Six Nations thinking, it's a question of will we win it or come second? For like a decade, I felt like
Yeah.
that was true. And the last 4 years I thought, oh no. It don't feel like that. I feel like we're back to the 90s a little bit now. And
I do as well, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, because I was born in the 80s, but I grew up in the 90s, and it does feel like I'm watching Wales in the 90s again. So it's a shame. Okay, so on this pod, we do a mailbox section, and we ask our listeners for their comments and questions. By a country mile, David, the most amount of comments we get from our listeners and supporters is about the coaching team, okay? Particularly around the attack coach and the head coach. So, for example, for 2 seasons in a row now, Dragons have had the worst attack in the league, and that's according to the URC database. Yeah. Now, since Philo Tiatia took over from Dai Flanagan, he's had a tough start. He's won just one game, and he currently has a win percentage of just 6%. So, David, can you just tell us why the board believe Philo Tiatia is the right man for the job when his track record as a head coach of other clubs is less than impressive?
so I think it goes back to players, because I think, to be fair to Philo, he took the job on at a really difficult time with a squad of players that he inherited. That I think we as owners didn't do a good enough job of assembling last summer. I think that talks a lot to Philo's values and his leadership ability, and the fact that we obviously see him in private and how he behaves and what he says. So Philo has all our confidence as owners. I think he behaves the right way. I think if I look at two things. One is, I think we need to strengthen the backroom team, which I think we're trying to do to support not just Philo, whether it was Di Flan or whether it had been previous coaches to that. I think there's not just about one individual, although the head coach is critical. I do think the head coach is critical. So I think we've had to improve and strengthen that. I think obviously Dan Lydiate being obviously the back row, helping at the breakdown coach, is another good, strong addition to the coaching team as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's those two parts to it. I think the second part that I didn't talk to as well is the fact that I saw something about in football where they talked about, I can't remember who it was now. I think it was Gary Lineker was interviewing Duncan Ferguson, I think it was. And they were talking about football, and Duncan Ferguson was talking about Carlo Ancelotti, the Real Madrid manager, and he said, he's a great man and a great manager, but he said in the end it's all about players. And and I think there's a little bit to that. And it really struck a chord with me because even though football's not rugby, I thought to myself, you could put a really good coach in, the best head coach in world rugby, into the Dragons, but if you don't give them the players, then they're going to struggle, aren't they? I mean, we all saw what's happened with Warren Gatland second time road. Now, did Warren Gatland suddenly become a terrible coach? Before that, we were naming gates after him, in Cardiff, and we were saying he was, the second coming, and he won Grand Slam after Championship after World Cup semi-final. So there was something in that for me about players and recruitment, and that goes back to owners again and taking responsibility for investing money and investing money well. And I think rightly, people talk a lot about coaching. I think we got a pretty good coaching setup now. I think Philo's a good man. He knows what good looks like. He has high standards. He's played at a high level. I think the backroom team is improved. I think there's more to do on it, but I think it's definitely improved. I think Dan Liddy at a breakdown, for example, is a great addition. Um, I think we probably could even do with continued improvement in that area, but I feel better about it. But we ultimately we gotta give we've got to strengthen the squad because in my time at the Dragons, we've had Bernard Jackman, we've had Kerry Jones, good, very good man who I liked a lot. Kerry,
Yeah.
he's a great man, really good man. We've had Dean Ryan, who was a tough taskmaster, and in the first season improved us a lot, but the second season was tough. Then we've obviously had Di Flan, who's a great bloke, and now we've got Philo. So we can keep convincing ourselves that it's the head coaches, or we can actually also start looking at the wider picture. And I prefer to look at the wider picture, and I think the wider picture sits a little bit with the owners around recruitment and quality of recruitment. So I feel good about next year. I feel like the off-field team is solid. I think Philo's hired some really strong candidates to build his team around him, and I feel okay about that. I just figure make sure we need to get recruitment right, so our coaching team has got the best tools possible to win some games.
Okay, but do you accept the criticism from supporters that the backroom staff, and we're talking about Sam Hobbs, Matt O'Brien, the young coaches, David, they're inexperienced. A lot of people say they're inexperienced and there's not enough pedigree in the coaching team. Can you accept and understand those criticisms supporters have?
Well, I think we have to accept it because we won one game. So, whether what I wouldn't say is about, I don't think it's about Hobbsy or about Matt O'Brien. I don't think, no, I don't think that, I don't accept that because I don't think that, I think those guys are very talented young coaches, by the way, which are up and coming. And I'm hoping in the next 12, 18 months, we're able to support them and show that they're brilliant young coaches. I actually feel great about Hobbsy and Obi because I think they're very, very, very talented young coaches. I think what we have to do as owners is give them the quality of tools that they can show how good they are.
So,
Because
so can
I think if you put those into a different environment, I think what we have is very good coaches. I think what we need to do is make sure we invest and support them. And I don't think we've done a good enough job at that.
so can I ask a difficult question then, David? So that if I'm putting words in your mouth, tell me because I don't want to be doing that. But so, David, something we've said on the pod a lot, and fans have said it to us as well, is about what feels like a lack of attacking identity. Now, clearly, you've got faith in Matt O'Brien, and so why is that? Do you think, and why is it that our attackers look blunt for most of the season?
I think I think it's three fundamentals which we haven't got right, which is one is we didn't get gain line. So it's really hard to attack in rugby when you haven't got gain line.
Yeah.
So, we thought we'd recruited a ball carrier. We hadn't, and we haven't, and that was a bad mistake. And so we never had gain line. It's really hard in rugby. It's why Jamie Roberts was transformational for Wales. Why Faletau was transformational for Wales for a decade because they gave us gain line. So we didn't have gain line this year. Very difficult to play rugby on the back foot as an attacking formation or as attacking shape if you haven't got gain line, would be my observation as a punter, as a supporter. So I think we completely failed to give ourselves gain line, which makes it very difficult then, which then people naturally go to, well, that's the coach's fault because we haven't got, we don't look like we got shape. The truth is we never had front foot. We never couldn't get on the front foot. We couldn't get over the gain line. The second thing I think is that, we have actually some very, very, very talented runners. So we got some very, very talented individuals, skillful rugby players. We produce some very skillful players in Gwent, which is a reason to be cheerful. But then the third thing, which I'm afraid is a negative, is we haven't got a clutch finisher. So when we get ourselves into shape, when we're in a Dean Ryan, actually, for all his faults with Dean and the criticism Dean got, under Dean, we were a clutch team. We actually finished well under with Sam Davis. We actually finished some tight games by winning, which got us in the Champions Cup one season under Dean. And we haven't had that this year. So in games, you look at those clutch moments in the last 5-10 when we've been within a score, we've actually not had that. And again, I think that goes back to people saying, well, that's about, you go back to attack and coaching. The truth is what it's about is about clutch finishing. And I think that does bring you back a little bit to recruitment, I'm afraid. And again, I'm afraid it's back to us as owners. We didn't get it right last summer. So I think I'm not making excuses for people, because in the end, we've all got jobs to do, and you've got to own your shit, I think, when you're doing a job that's responsible in a professional environment. But I do think I guess what I'm saying, I do genuinely think, if I step back from the emotion of the frustration, there are very good reasons why it's not an easy place. An easy thing to do is to blame an individual when the truth is a little bit more complex.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Right, let's park aside on-field matters for off-field matters, because there is a big fallout at the moment, as we all know. Let's talk about the PRA. So, Scarlets and Ospreys, as we know, have refused to sign a new PRA deal because of concerns they have around the WRU's takeover of Cardiff when they went into administration. There are fears that they're going to be turned into a super club. Now, the WRU put out a statement confirming that they have issued a 2-year notice to terminate the current agreement with the professional teams. They said the WRU's preference from the outset was to maintain 4 professional clubs on equal funding. However, agreement on the new PRA could not be reached with 2 of the professional clubs. This is not a decision that was taken lightly. So, Cardiff, of course, because they're owned by the WRU, they have signed up to the new PRA deal, as have the Dragons. They will have increased funding, while the Ospreys and the Scarlets have not, creating an east and west split. So that means there's going to be a 2+2 funding model and the possibility of losing a team in the near future. So Dragons released a statement saying they were delighted to sign the new PRA deal. They have received a lot of criticism from Scarlets and Osprey supporters for doing so, as you well know, David. And before we get on to that criticism, can you explain to us why Dragons signed the PRA deal? Because a lot of people are asking, I think it's a fair point actually, what assurances do you have as an ownership group that the Scarlets and Ospreys didn't? So can you please explain to us why you decided to sign that PRA deal?
Yeah, of course I can. So I guess if you step back from Dragons, Osprey, Scarlets, what I would say to people is, we as 3 private owners that own the Dragons, we look very skeptically and probably negotiated as hard. No, I'd say we negotiate as hard as anyone, and bear in mind our own personal money is invested in this, right? So this is not, we're not Cardiff. We're not, this is our money. So this is my money, David Wright's and Ho Young's. So we're signing up to an agreement with the WRU where we're risking our own money. So this is, at a business level, this is as serious as it gets. So this is not like we're investing someone else's money or I don't know, some, whatever. This is our money. So we negotiated super hard, as you'd expect us to. That's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is we got sufficiently comfortable. We refused to sign at first, but then after an extensive round of negotiations, David Wright and myself and Ho Young got comfortable that we thought, you know what, it's not perfect. It isn't perfect, but we get 3 years of improved funding and a 5-year stable agreement. And that gives us as the opportunity of owners, if we got 5-year agreement with 3 years of increased funding, it's not perfect, but we can grow from here. and we'll put our own money where our own mouths are, alongside the WIUs to grow our club, and we're willing on that basis to then therefore go forward. The last thing was we were really nervous about the Cardiff thing, like the Scarlets and the Ospreys. So myself and David Wright and Ho Young asked the WIU, we put a side letter into the WIU saying we will sign this agreement, but alongside this side letter saying that, there is no sort of principle of favourable treatment for Cardiff, which we then submitted as a side letter, which the WIU accepted. Once they accepted that side letter, I said to David Wright, and me and David Wright had a long call one evening a few weeks ago, and I said, you know what, mate, let's go for it. Let's go for it and build our club, because we can't stay in this place of just negotiating paralysis forever. This feels good enough, and David Wright recommended and felt the same. So David Wright is a bloody good businessman. And I think I'm an okay businessman. And I thought between the two of us and Ho Young, we thought, you know what, let's go for it. And, you know, we're responsible for the Dragons. I'm not responsible for the Ospreys and the Scarlets. Their owners have to make their own decision. As you know from me by now, I ain't a sheep. I don't follow Cardiff. I don't follow the Union. I don't follow Steve Phillips. I don't follow the Ospreys, and I sure as hell don't follow the Scarlets. I make my own mind up on whether I think something makes sense. It made a ton of sense to me to sign this deal. I thought for us as a club, it gives us certainty for the next 5 years. We got increased funding for 3 years. If we put our money where our mouths are as owners, we can improve and build our club. I'm not going to sit in a paranoid space about every dot and every crossing of every T to create paralysis. That was my view. And I could prove to be wrong. And that was my opinion. And David made his own view, and so did Ho Young. And I want to build my club. So I don't owe anybody else anything. And so I make no apology for the fact we signed it. We told the clubs, by the way, we told the Scarlets and the Ospreys before we told the Union. We said, look, boys, we've been through this now. We've got this side letter and we're happy to sign. So we told them. So we told them before we told the Union, we're going to be signing this agreement. We hope you're going to sign it with us, but we're going to go for it. They choose not to do it. That's up to them. But I don't make any apology for the fact that we did. And then we told the Union we're going to sign, and we did. And then I thought, actually, to be honest, that the Scarlets and Ospreys would also sign. So I was actually a little bit surprised they didn't. And I actually wanted them to sign because I want Welsh rugby, ultimately. I'm a Welsh rugby fan. I want Welsh rugby to be super successful, and I want it to grow. And I really thought they might, because the fact that we got comfortable as three private owners, I thought they would also get comfortable. But for whatever reason, they haven't, and I respect that. I respect that they haven't, but that's their decision. It's nothing to do with us.
Do you think there's a place for them still to do it? Do you think Scarlets and Ospreys still could sign it?
I don't think so. My sense was actually, perhaps, Gav, a week or two ago, I thought, yeah, that's what would happen. I just thought there'd be a bit of a classic Welsh rugby ruckus. And then eventually it would happen, but I'm not so sure now. I'd like to think there's a solution in the next. I would like to think that there'll be a solution in the next couple of weeks. I do hope so, and I really would welcome that. I want that to be true, but I'm not sure I'm not sure that'll be the case. I'm not sure anymore. If you asked me a couple of weeks ago, I'd say yeah, I think it'll get sorted out. But I think right now that it's probably a little bit more difficult than that now. So I'm not so sure, Gav.
Okay. So just to confirm then, David, two things. You say you didn't sign it first. So you did have concerns and queries regarding WRU's ownership of Cardiff. Is that correct? Did you have any genuine concerns about it?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, and I think with the greatest respect to everyone in Welsh rugby, I don't think anyone has put any much personal reputation and personal question on the line as I have with the WRU. I've questioned the WRU more than anyone else, publicly, privately, in the last 7 years, much to my own pain. And so if anybody thinks that the Dragons and I would sign an agreement blind with the WRU, they must be smoking something pretty strong that they should pass along, if they think that's true, because that just is a million miles from true. So yeah, I had serious concerns about it, but we're comfortable with them, and so and also let's not forget, that the agreement we've signed, I I genuinely thought all parties would sign up to. The fact they haven't, okay, I get it. That's up to them. But it's kind of weird when people then start to question why we did, when all we did was do our own analysis, make our own agreement as it was available. By the way, the agreement we've signed is the one that was available to everybody. So we haven't got,
Yeah.
we don't have an agreement that's like special. We have the agreement that was available to everybody. It's just we decided on balance of probabilities it was the right thing to do. That's all. That's all it was. And they decided not to.
Because everyone pre-agreed to it, didn't they, in like in principle, but then Blues go in, not Blues, Cardiff, stuck in time of the Cardiff go into the to administration. That's what threw the spanner in, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why we put the side letter in. The side letter got us sufficiently comfortable that we had assurances that we could sign. But you're absolutely right, Gav. Everybody had the same agreement, and everyone in principle. Bear in mind this. I think this agreement in classic Welsh rugby style, they've been negotiating this for about 4,000 years, right? I had a full head of hair and was, had no when we started negotiating this. There's no surprises here. There's no surprises here to anybody. So, the truth is they were pretty close.
Okay. Did you feel under any pressure to sign our agreement? Because a lot of people, including myself, I'll be honest, and I have retracted it since, a lot of us felt that you caved into pressure when that deadline was set. So did you as an ownership group feel under any pressure to sign our agreement?
Zero.
Zero. Okay.
Listen, zero. In fact, let me give you a bit of insight into the Dragons ownership. Me and Wrighty are wired in that Gwenty way that if someone puts us into pressure, we go the opposite way. We'll dig in and be even more stubborn than ever if we feel like we're being pushed into doing something. And for those of you from Gwent, you'll understand this. It's like you just can't describe it to people ever. But the more someone pushed me and Righty, the more we're going to go the opposite way. Even if it means you go, but why do you, my foot goes from London? Why would you do that, love? You're cutting off your nose to spite your face. And I go, yeah, because it's a Gwenty thing. It's a Gwenty thing. No, definitely not. We never ever at all. We did it for one reason. We actually genuinely, and I still maintain it now. I think I've said on Twitter, we passionately believe we've done the right thing for our club. We think this is a good agreement. We're happy with it. I'd wished all 4 clubs had signed it. I, hand on my heart, believe that there was the right thing, actually. I personally believe the Ospreys and Scarlets should have signed it. I appreciate I'm not an owner of the Scarlets. I'm not the owner of the Ospreys. If I have been an owner of Ospreys and Scarlets, I would 100% promise you I can put my hand on my heart and say, if I was only the Ospreys or the owner of the Scarlets, I would say, boys, we should sign this agreement. We should be signing it. So I really mean that. So I only signed it because I really passionately believe it's the right thing to do for Gwent Rugby, for Dragons, and I actually think it's the right thing to do for Welsh Rugby. So I'm happy that we've signed it, and I'm happy that we've done the right thing.
And there's people out there, David, and you'll have seen it, who are saying this is what the WRU wanted. You can't speak for the WRU, but the WRU only ever wanted 3 clubs, and this is a way of getting it. And that's not been the way I've seen it. This is just business decisions being made by businesses. Would you agree that the WRU wanted 4 clubs, and they've never really shifted from that position?
No, listen. A few years ago, if you'd asked me that 2 years ago, I said that's true. I think there was people in the WRU a couple of years ago wanted 3 clubs, and that's why I was genuinely slightly terrified about the negotiation when I was trying to buy the Dragons because I thought this is a really convenient way to get from 4 to 3, and I was genuinely paranoid about it, almost slightly terrified. Uh, I don't believe for 1 second Abby wants 3 teams because she stated clearly publicly, and why would you do that as a new CEO, that she wants 4 teams to be successful. And she wants a quality of funding. She could have easily said as a new chief exec taking over, look, I've come in, there's a big problem, Welsh rugby's a turnaround, 4 teams is not sustainable, everything is on the table, we're going to do a big review, and then Kate, what a surprise, you come up with 3 teams as a scenario. You wouldn't do it the way round this has happened.
No.
You wouldn't do it that way, right?
No.
I genuinely believe they wanted to do a deal that was for 4 teams. The truth is, what's happened here is that what's actually happened is, I'm afraid, conspiracies are often, the things people like to talk about. But the truth is, cock up is often the reason, not a conspiracy. There's no conspiracy here. It's just a cock up. I think two teams have made a decision that have decided not to sign an agreement, and that's now presented a challenge that has resulted in people going, well, hang around. If these guys don't want to sign the agreement, perhaps we need to think differently. And I think it's provoked this thought of perhaps we go in a different direction. But let's be candid. All four teams, including Cardiff, the Dragons, Ospreys, and Scarlets, were given this agreement to sign. If all four had signed it, we wouldn't be talking about it now.
No.
The deal was available for all four teams. So if the conspiracy was true, you would never served up the agreement and go,
no.
If you all sign this, it's done.
No.
It's just the two decided not to sign it, and now we're in this world that we're in.
I just think there's people out there, and people are entitled to their opinion, but they want to be what they consider to be on the right side. The idea that the WRU is this evil. It's not. I don't think it's a particularly well-run organisation, but it certainly doesn't have an agenda. Its agenda is to improve Welsh rugby. It's just not very good at doing it right now.
Correct.
But there's people who don't want to believe that. They want to believe something else.
Well, it's always easier to blame somebody else, right, than take responsibility yourself.
Yeah, too true. Okay, I mentioned the criticism the Dragons have got for signing the PRA and putting out that statement. Social medias have been fine. There's a lot of hate towards the Dragons at the moment, David, as I'm sure you are aware of. There were some very angry and emotional Scarlets and Ospreys fans who accused the Dragons of gloating, having poor judgment, lacking class when that statement was put out. Scabs have been mentioned an awful lot. Now, I did see that you got a lot of shit for one particular Scarlets fan who called you shameless, smelling of roses, and accused the Dragons of destroying half of Welsh rugby. So, David, what do you say to those emotional Scarlets and Ospreys fans who call the Dragons scabs and accuse the Dragons of abandoning the Welsh teams by not sticking together and signing a deal?
Yeah, I would say to them that it's there's probably three things I would say. First thing is that if you think about it from if I take out the emotion, right? If I take about how provocative some of that language is, right? Let me try to be a bigger man, because I've sat in rooms with people from those clubs that have tried to kill my club, the Dragons, right? So I've sat in rooms from people from those clubs who've definitely alienated my club and have tried to put it out of business. But let me step back from the emotion of how that feels, because I'm trying to be quite zen as I'm trying to process some of that criticism, because it probably stings a little bit. And why does it sting a little bit? For three reasons. First of all, because I love Welsh rugby and I respect the Scarlets greatly. I think the guys that run the Ospreys are first class, and how they've done the regional game at the Ospreys is as good as anything I've seen in Wales in the last 15, 20 years. So I have a huge amount of respect for West Walian rugby, as well as quite a few good kick-ins when I went down there as a Gwent boy that I remember quite well.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Fortunately, sorry, I remember it well. So that's the first thing. So I have a ton of respect, and I want them to be hugely successful. The second thing is, I think it's pretty ungainly when Welsh people are calling other Welsh people scabs, because if there's one thing Welsh people ain't, is scabs. We don't stab each other in the back like that. I think Welsh people are, and Gwenties are as loyal as it comes, and we're not wired that way. And for those of us at the Dragons, we've stood up to the WRU when we were owned by the WRU, and that's not an easy thing to do. That's like literally standing up to the hand that was feeding you, literally biting the hand that's feeding you. We bit it. We bit it because we didn't think it was doing the right thing by Welsh rugby. And, as Dragons, we did that for 4 or 5 years when we were owned by the WRU. We literally bit the hand that fed us, even though the hand that was feeding us was literally saying, you better stop doing this. We own you. You can't do this. We still did it because I believe personally it wasn't the right thing for Welsh rugby, as did others at the Dragons. So the evidence would tell you, if we did it when we were owned by the WRU and we stood up to them when we were owned by them, we sure as hell are not going to bow and doff our cap to them when we're not owned by them anymore. So I would hope people can see that is a little bit of truth or a contradiction in that. The third thing is, we were really transparent with everyone in Welsh rugby. We told the clubs, the other privately owned clubs, the Scarlets and the Ospreys, we were going to sign this agreement, and we told them the reason why. That we had a side letter, we were comfortable with it regarding Cardiff, and we were going to go ahead and sign it. So we didn't do this in some backfill smoky room. We didn't sign up to terms and conditions that were not exactly available to everybody else. We did it because we felt, as independently minded, thinking individuals that owned our club, that we were happy with it. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. We didn't get one term available to us that wasn't available to everybody else, that we felt it was the right thing to do. And that's it. That's it. And I genuinely, sorry, that's the three things. The last thing I'd say is I really hope, hand on my heart, that they can fix it. That the WRU and the Ospreys and Scarlets find a solution as quick as possible, because Welsh rugby can't afford to screw around. Welsh rugby is in the doldrums. We haven't won a national game for God knows how long, and whatever veneer we put on this season, Welsh rugby's a long way off being where we want it to be. And the more we spend energy and time fighting about this, and somebody said to me that's actually close to the URC and World Rugby, when all this stuff came out a week or two about, Welsh rugby and the West, the Ospreys and Scarlets falling out, they said, oh, it's just Welsh rugby doing Welsh rugby. And that, in a way, that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
We're perceived that way. We're actually perceived that way now. Oh, it's just another crisis in Welsh rugby. Oh, they always have crises. And that's not where we want to be, I think. So I think the sooner this is brought to a conclusion in a positive way, the better. And as owners of the Dragons, we will support a positive outcome in whatever that looks like, including, by the way, with Cardiff, because we've been in that boat, where I've been in that boat. So the sooner that gets resolved, the better. And I know how difficult that can be. So that's the truth of it.
Okay, fair enough. I read Steph Thomas's Substack column the other day, and something caught my eye, and I want to ask you about it. So this is what he wrote. He said, according to WRU insiders, the funding directors at the professional clubs will now be required to contribute 41 million over the next 5 years, up from 22 million. Is that factually correct?
Across all four, is it? I know what it's for the Dragons. I don't know what it's for the other ones. So so it's an increase in funding contribution for us as owners. Of the Dragons. I don't know what the combination is across all four. Steph's obviously got access to confidential information from somebody somewhere in West Wales.
Yes.
Joke. But no, so I don't know what the total amount would be, but yeah, as owners of the Dragons, we have to obviously guarantee that we're going to support the club, but we're happy to do that, and we've got comfortable with that because, if you go back to the league we're in, we have to get back to building a winning product in Welsh rugby, and as private investors in Welsh rugby and the WRU, we need to invest more money, and we're in the business of professional sports. So yeah, Welsh rugby needs more money, and it's on us as owners, amongst other owners, to increase the investment in it so we can be competitive and win. And frankly, if you're not willing to do that, you probably shouldn't be an owner, because you shouldn't be doing this because you want anything other than Welsh rugby to be successful. And that's, I think, if I look at David Wright, or if I look at myself or Ho Young, I think what I see when I speak to those three guys is three guys who won Welsh rugby or won the Dragons to start winning some bloody rugby matches.
Yeah. So you're comfortable as an ownership group, you can meet the funding requirements, the increased funding requirements, and you're comfortable with that?
Yep, we are. We wouldn't have signed the agreement unless we were.
Great stuff. Okay. As a passionate Welsh rugby fan, David, I got to ask you this. Where has it all gone wrong in Welsh rugby? How have we got to where we are now? I appreciate this is a separate pod on its own, but how have we gone to this mess, David?
It's a series of pods.
If you could cut it down to like a 5-minute answer, or 8 minutes.
Cut it down. I would say go back to I think there was a massive crossroads in 2019. So I think if I go back to when it went wrong, I think we won the Grand Slam in 2019, went the World Cup. We lost a semi-final to a penalty to was it Pollard knocked a penalty over from between the 22 and 40 meter line in
World Cup,
Yokohama Stadium, where they tripped themselves up in a mall and knocked over a penalty. And the South Africans, when I say they, I think they tripped themselves up. And the reason why I picked that moment is because if you were the chief exec at WIU at that moment, I would have gone, fucking hell, we were literally a bad penalty away from being a World Cup final, away from playing England, who we'd beaten that year in the Grand Slam year, 2019, albeit in Cardiff. We'd give them a right good beating in Cardiff. We were literally minutes away from potentially, we were certainly in a World Cup final, and we were probably, I would say, England would have had their final in the semi-final against the All Blacks. I think we'd have won that World Cup final, Jay. I know Bigger had his back and he was gone, and but I think we might have won that World Cup final against England. And the reason why I picked that moment is because that was a moment where the WIU should have doubled down on its investment in the professional game. They should have gone, oh my God, we were literally this close to being in a World Cup final, and we were perhaps this close from winning a World Cup final. Let's not forget that. It's 2019. It's 6 years ago. It feels a lifetime ago. And the reason why it feels a lifetime ago is since then we made a succession of decisions as Welsh Rugby which were catastrophically crap. You know, we built a hotel, we built a roof walk, we didn't double down and improve the Vale, we didn't increase professional rugby's funding, so we brought in 2 or 3 world-class foreign signings so that our youngsters coming through knew what great looked like, as in world-class great looked like. And if we'd have done that, I think we'd have been in such a different place now. Such a different place. Instead, we went down this route of cutting funding. We passed the COVID loans on through the WIU to the professional game. We nearly bankrupt the professional game. We asked players to take huge pay cuts. We didn't invest in facilities. We built a hotel and a roof walk versus training grounds. And so that 2019 for me was a key lever of we could have gone down one path and we chose another. And that's about leadership and it's about quality of decision making. Now, that's a really gloomy picture to how we ended up in 2025 we're at. What it shows you is if you're 1 or 2 decisions away from being in a really shitty place, you're 1 or 2 places away from being in a great place. So why don't we start now, stop doing all the things that doesn't make me right, but I passionately believe we screw up in Welsh rugby, and we put the professional game at the heart and soul of every decision we make. What makes the Welsh rugby team win, what makes our boat go faster, what makes us win versus a competition, and focus on that and only that. And anything that does not make our Welsh rugby team win, chuck it away, get rid of it. Be ruthless, be absolutely ruthless about it. Chuck it over the side and don't do it. Because I think as much as that 2019 moment I gave you has taken us down the sort of underperformance route, if we go down the other route, then who knows, in come 2020, probably 27 is going to come too soon now, but 2031, we could be in a very Welsh, as a nation, we are heart and soul. We are, rugby ignites our nation, and it just takes a little spark to ignite the fire, but we got to start making good decisions to do it. That's what I think.
Yeah. We're in danger of soccer taking over from rugby, though, aren't we? Even in the south, it's always been like that in the north. But in the south now, soccer's getting far more traction, and because it's a better product right now. You'd rather watch a Welsh team that's winning than a Welsh team that's not won for 2 years.
Yeah, but we've done that to ourselves, haven't we?
No, God, yeah.
The Welsh FA done a good job of Neil. The team at the Welsh FA, I think, do a super job.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All my kids are Welsh football nuts, and they all want to go and watch the women's team. They all want to go and watch the men's team. And it's a match day experience at, I say Ninian Park. It's not called that. Cardiff City.
TCS.
Yeah. Cardiff City.
Old school David.
I'm a generation where you still call it Ninian Park. But anyway, Cardiff City Stadium, that it's a great match day experience. I took my kids there. It's a fantastic night out. And of course, they're even starting to own some of the old rugby songs, and I think that's good, because good for them. But it just goes to show, if we get it right as Welsh Rugby Mind, it'll be.
Oh yeah.
Nothing stops the country like rugby will in Wales. Nothing. No. And there's no room for. By the way, you can't be complacent about that. But you got to take a bit of comfort. 2019 was not that long ago, and we all remember Cardiff that day. The country stopped. The country stopped.
Yeah.
And it was only 6 years ago. We can have it back, but we got to sort it out.
Yeah, it's complacency, though, and I think we'd had a generation of success, and I think there was certain people made assumptions that that success would continue forever, and it doesn't.
Well, you make a right good point, Gav. If you know, there'll be I'm not one of them, but there'll be people on this listen to this pod. There'll be Manchester United fans, and you know, if you look at the
Poor buggers.
yeah, if you look at the class of '92, right? Who would
Yeah.
have put Alex Ferguson stopping in 2013? They wouldn't win a title for 12 years.
Yeah.
In a terminal decline, I think they finished 17th or 16th in the Premier League.
15th they finished in the end.
Fif-
West Ham and Tottenham below them.
Yeah, 15th in the Premier League, and they look a million miles off it, don't they? And who'd have thought that in a decade? In a decade, and that just comes from culture, environment, the investment model, all the things
Yeah.
that we talked about around Welsh rugby in, around 2019 is true in professional professional sports. Tough, and if you start making bad decisions, it looks a long road back. You start making good decisions, mind. Aston Villa were in the Championship about, was it 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Now they're
5 years ago.
So there you go. There you go. Newcastle United, how long were they in the Championship? They just
7 years, I think.
they just won a trophy and they just got the Champions League. So, you know, if you start making decisions, you won't get back in a year, but if you start making good decisions, you will get back quicker than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gav couldn't be with us tonight. He's our other co-host, but he wanted me to ask you this. So Chairman David Wright has promised supporters a marquee signing. Sorry, David, I gotta ask you about this. He did say to supporters at the Q&A, he said, I couldn't promise two, but I can definitely promise one. Now, I don't expect you to name any names for us, but can you give us any kind of update? Are we going to have a marquee signing? Because I got to be honest, David, I'm very skeptical about all this. Is it happening or not?
Foden Barrett.
Oh, that'd be amazing, wouldn't that? That'd be fantastic.
I don't have high expectations, but if you could sort of Reece Patchell and David Havili, I'd be really happy. No pressure.
I think to be fair to Righty, so yeah, on the marquee thing, we I think as owners, I'm probably I actually feel for Righty a bit on this one because we actually, whenever that Q&A was that January? When was that Q&A? Was that January? I don't know. Anyway, the point being, when we had the Q&A, we really had sufficient money to more than do it. Things have definitely got tighter since then. So I guess what I would say is I would certainly say we're definitely not finished with signings, and there's definitely more to come. I would say that to people. And I really mean that in the spirit of there's genuinely more to come. It's not like, you know, there really is genuinely more to come. I think we need to be careful because financially as a club, we need to be careful we don't go and sign some players that, if I look at what's happened last summer in terms of signings, we spent a lot of money on players that were pretty expensive and either have not played or made little difference. So money is understandably in signings is where supporters go, and I get it. And there's definitely, and I say it again, there's a lot more to come. But I would say marquee feels less likely to me now because the stress and the financial pressure that's coming feels like it's slightly less realistic. But what I would say is the intention is to do as much as we can, and then genuine to stress it for the third time. There's lots of reasons to be cheerful over the coming weeks because there are several signings that we think are positive. I wouldn't characterize them as marquee though, but I think they're pretty positive and they make us a lot better. That's how I would characterize it. But equally, if I can just protect my colleague, Mr. Wright, and
because to be fair, David, he said, I promise. So suppose I'm going to listen to this and they're going to say, well, hang on, our chairman promised a marquee signing and now you're saying we're not going to get one. Do you understand why supporters might get a little bit naffed off by that now?
Yeah, I can understand why they would get naffed off. What I would say supporters is that we can, when that promise was made, to be fair to Righty, 100% our intention, because I was in the board meetings and I agreed the fact we are going to sign a marquee player, myself personally. So it's not on David Wright, it's on David Buttress and it's on Ho Young. So David Wright just happened to be the person that said it. I would say to you now that I said it in effect I said the same, that we were going to sign a marquee player. The truth is, financially now, I would say it's tricky. That's not to say we're not trying, mind. I just want to be clear. We're still going. We're still going. We haven't quite given up. but the finances are looking pretty strained, and we've probably done as much as we can, but there is a bit more to come. So I would say, is it as optimistic as we felt in January? No, but there's still reasons to be cheerful and don't quite give up yet. Is that a fair way to?
Yeah. So what you're saying is there's more signs to come, but you can't promise a marquee signing anymore because things have changed. That's fair enough, yeah? You can't
Yeah,
promise that.
That's
Okay.
exactly what I'm saying.
Okay,
and
that's fair enough.
how many roughly signing? So we've seen Robert Hunt's name going around a lot, so we'll put him to one side. But are there other names? Like how many other 2, 3 other potential names?
He's not going to say names, is
No,
he, Gav?
no, I
Come
don't want
on.
names. I want numbers. I want a number, 2 or 3 other a name, like 2 or 3 other players. Don't want names. Just
I think we've let 14, 15 go.
Yeah, 14 departed.
I think
yeah.
we've announced 11, have we? Is that right?
I think we've announced 8 at the moment. Robert Hunt to
Yeah.
be 9. But
Yes.
then the Argus did say you're looking for a scrum half.
There's a few more to come.
Yeah.
There's a few more announcements to come. It's more, yeah, there's several to come.
There we
Okay.
are.
I'll
Okay.
take that as more than 2. That's
More than 2.
Okay, last question, David, because we have kept you for a long time. I do apologize for that. Next season is a big one for the Dragons. There will be a lot more pressure and expectation given the recruitment that we've made, and the coaching staff are going to be under a lot more scrutiny than they were before. 5 of our first 7 games are at home. They front-loaded our home games yet again. That's pretty disappointing and frustrating. I don't know how you feel about that as a co-owner, but anyway, we have to get off to a good start. So my question to you is, what would be considered a successful season for the Dragons next year? What does success look like to you, given the fact that we are seemingly very far behind, 20 points behind Zebra this season? What does success look like next season?
I think we have to. I really would like us to qualify for Champions Cup. I think we have to be.
That's quite ambitious, David, isn't it? I mean, have we got the squad and the depth to do that? You know.
I know, mate, but Cardiff and Scarlets. If you look at Cardiff and Scarlets this season, if you look at Cardiff, Scarlets and Ospreys, they were, all of them individually had a good run at Champions Cup, didn't they?
They
Qualification.
did, yeah.
All of them, right? All of them. And I think that a lot of that talks to the thing we talked about earlier, which is culture, that their environments and their clubs expect them to get after that sort of level. So
Yeah.
I think we have to really get after that sort of level. I mean, we can't take this year as a benchmark and go, we were 20 points behind and somehow that means that we should be aiming for 14th next year. I think 14th is not good enough. And I think, we all know the league is tough. The league is getting harder,
Yeah.
but I think we've recruited pretty well. If I look at some of the clutch games, the 3 or 4 games, I feel like we could have won 5 games, 6 games this year that we just
Definitely.
got away from us. If ifs, buts, and maybes, there's a very impolite phrase I won't use about but ifs, buts, and maybes. But I really feel like 5, 6 wins would not have been unrealistic. And if we can turn that around, we can have a good go next year. And I think we have to set ourselves an expectation that we qualify for the upper echelons of European competition. And Rodney Parade is a tough place to come. It actually is.
It used to be, David. I don't think it has been the past 2 or 3 years, if I'm being honest. It hasn't. I'm just got to be honest about that. It needs to be what it used to be before. It used to be a horrible, nasty place to come. And now I think it's too soft and easy. Teams come here and they get 5-point bonus wins, don't they? That is what's been happening, unfortunately. We need to make it a harder, nastier place to come. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I feel as a supporter. I think it's lost its edge, Rodney Parade. It's not what it used to be.
I think Rodney Parade hasn't lost its edge. I think we've lost our edge in the last 10, 20 minutes a game. I think this year we've made it too easy for sides. Rodney Parade's a tricky place to come, I think. It's just, as in like the supporters, the closeness of the ground. I think it's 40, 50, 60 minutes. I don't think, if you ask most players, if you ask most opposition players, they always say it's a tricky place to play, especially kickers. But I think that where I'd agree with you, Jamie, is that the last 10, 20 minutes of games this season, we've made it too easy for sides to pull away or or to get wins over the line. But I go back to, you asked me what I thought success looks like next season. I think we have to be a winning side at home. I think we have to be a winning side at home and give ourselves a good chance at qualifying for the Champions Cup. Let's give ourselves a right good go at it. And because my fear is if I as an owner or you as supporters go, oh, we're being too ambitious, but then what are we aiming for then? We aiming to finish 15th, 14th, 16th by only 6 points. I mean, I'm not in it for that. I'm not in it for that. I really thought this year, genuinely, maybe I was mad. Perhaps actually I was mad because we finished by 20 points. But
Yeah.
but I really thought this year, I really genuinely thought we could have had a sort of Cardiff-like season where we would have challenged people and made it difficult. And I look at our group of players, and I do think we should have done a lot better than what we did. Now it turns out that wasn't true. But I do think next year we really do have to completely transform what's acceptable. And I don't see any reason why we can't finish as a winning team at home. I would like to think we can finish as a winning team at home. Yeah, I struggle to find anything else acceptable. And we as owners need, if we're not, we as owners need to ask ourselves what we're doing. Like, are we not investing enough? Are we not getting enough sponsors in? Do we need to bring another owner in who can take the club on better than we can? Because I'm not in it to like finish 15th and 16th every year. I'm not, I'm in it because I really love Gwent Rugby and I want it to be a proud place to play rugby. So if in another year or two we as owners haven't got the place winning more, then we need to go and talk to some people that perhaps can do a better job than we can. I'm not, I care more about the fact that we become the best we can be than I do about, having a nice comfy seat with a nice roast dinner and a comfy padded seat. I'd rather stand on the terrace and have someone else own it if they can do a better job and watch a winning team. So let's see. I mean, I really hope we can get after it next year. My expectation is that we should.
Yeah. I have to be honest though, the roast dinners in Hospitality Rodney Parade are out of this world. They are very, very nice. No, they are. I think we do brilliant hospitality.
Man of the people, Jamie.
Well,
if we finish 16th in the league in terms of performance on the field, let me tell you, in terms of hospitality, we are fucking number one.
Yes.
Having been to pretty much, I think I've been to all. Have I been to all? No, I haven't been to Munster. I haven't been. There's a couple of places I haven't been actually, but in terms of our hospitality and welcome, Rodney Parade, I promise you, is number one in the league. Number one in the league. So let's see if we can turn the off field into the on field.
Oh, that'd be great because we can't have another season like this again, can we, David? We just can't. It's painful for everyone.
As supporters, right, guys? You guys are passionate. I mean, how's it felt to you? It must have been pretty brutal, right?
It's been horrible doing a podcast talking about the same thing every week. That's what gets depressing. I don't mind losing. I know, people might say, "Oh, come on, mate, you're losing," but it's the manner of the defeat that hurts more when you're not competitive. When we're only competitive for 40 minutes, and then, as you mentioned, David, we tail off for the last 20, 25 minutes. It's clear we have got a mentality issue. And I think we need to overcome that. We've got to have somehow more confidence, more leadership. Until we overcome our mentality issues and we stop being mentally weak, then I think only then we can progress.
We've turned into a drinking game, essentially, because we say the same things every time. We
it's boring.
We talk about leadership. We talk about discipline.
Yeah.
We talk about losing the set piece, and we talk about it every week. And as fans, but also as podcasters, it's not great. By either point of view, having to talk about the same things continually.
This has been the worst season I've ever known to Dragons. Well, it is statistically the worst ever season, but it has been grim. Personally, for me, it has. Anyway, it's been absolutely grim. So, yeah.
Jamie, I have to say, I've been involved for 7 or 8 years, and this has definitely been, if I look back on it, I said at the start of the pod, didn't I? I mean, this for me has been the worst season. There's no question for me. Definitely been the worst season on the field. I would definitely say that's true. And I think there's kind of it's like, it's an easy thing to say, but it's saying, what do you do about it? Like, what do you do about it? And the reasons to be cheerful are, I think the recruitment looks solid. Let's not. I don't want to go. I don't want to be. No room for you for exaggeration. So the recruitment looks solid. It'll make us better. We need to prove it on the field next year. We got some talented young boys coming through. I think we've recruited ironically, we've recruited some very talented under-20s, and for the medium term, which hopefully people can see that as owners, we care about the medium term, not just next year, because I think some of the recruitment we've done, which might have gone a little bit unnoticed, but we've recruited some very, very high potential young Welsh talent into the group. Players that perhaps wouldn't have come in the past to the Dragons. That are very, very talented rugby players. So I think there are reasons to be cheerful in the medium term, but we need to address the short term, i.e. next 12 months, because one thing is for certain, we cannot have a season ever again like this year. I mean, I
Oh,
can remember
please
driving
not.
back over the seven. I can remember driving back Severn Bridge a couple of times this year, and other than for the fact that my kids were in the back and there's lots of reasons to be cheerful, I felt like jumping up, literally like giving up. It's like this is just not good enough. I didn't know. I can remember driving back after I think it was which game was it where I felt, oh, fucking all my days.
Take your pick.
It was a game where it was probably, I feel like was it Ulster? It might have been Ulster actually, where I just thought even though we
Yeah.
played quite well, I just thought it was just so predictable. You're like, this is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And you sort of question what you're doing because you go, it's like, you do your jobs, I do my job. You think, what is it us? Are we not doing something right here? Have we just got this completely wrong? Are we misreading it? You question yourself and think, are we able to turn this around? You just do, because when you care about something, you're just desperate to you just want it to be successful. And I can remember I think it was the Ulster game, and I remember driving over the Severn Bridge thinking, it just can't be like this in 6, 12 months. It just can't be like this. And there's no excuse. It's easy to say, oh, the referee, this and that, that yellow card, this and that, the kick that hit the post, the fact we missed a penalty, bang in front, which would have taken us 2 scores. All the things you and I both know you can definitely self-justify as a rugby fan. But the truth is, that's been a pattern that I've watched now for a long time. So it's not an accident. It wasn't a one-off. It's a pattern. And when it's a pattern, you have to look it in the eye and say, right, we're really gonna have to rip this up a little bit. We're gonna we are gonna change 14 personnel. We are gonna change the backroom staff. We are going to invest quite a lot of money to try and turn this around. We are going to bring in some players because, there's no point being the custodian of a rugby club that you love and just watching it win one league game. It's a form of masochism, and I don't want to impose masochism on myself any more than I want to impose it on the next person.
No, absolutely. Gavin, do you have any more questions
No,
for Mr. Buttress?
no,
Because we've kept him for quite a long time.
Yeah,
now, so I'm conscious
absolutely.
of that. Okay, we'll leave it there. David, thank you so much for joining us and being honest. As always, we really appreciate it. I'm sure the supporters will as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Gav.
No problem.
No problem. Take care, David. Ta-ra.
You soon. Ta-ra.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, David.
There we go. David Buttress. Very informative, very honest as always.
Yeah. And, people will argue with him and say, that's not the case. Well, other than show them the papers, I don't know what else people want from it. He's...
Yeah. I think there might be some disappointment regarding the marquee signing, but I don't want to say I told you so, but I've been very skeptical about this from the moment it was said. I have to be honest. So,
but if it's a choice about having, say, Robert Hunt and a marquee, or Robert Hunt and 3 extra players, I'd take the 3 extra players.
I think I would as well.
I was having this conversation with Sam Larner, just like off pod. He was asking me about something he was writing for someone, and he said, as a supporter of a struggling club, would you rather have 1 or 2 stars, or would you rather have a deep squad? And I'd rather have a deep squad.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that, Gav. But yeah, anyway, thank you to David. Yeah, just very honest as always. Really enjoyed our chat. Right, before we move on, then we've had some 5-star reviews come in. We've had some very nice reviews, actually, Gav. So this is from Spotify. Niall James says, great podcast. Keep it up. Just hope for better next season. Yep, absolutely. We're all hoping for better next season, aren't we? SWJ Graphic Art Design says, really enjoy the podcast. I look forward to listening to you all putting Dragons Rugby to rights. GP Air Conditioning says, lads, Caerphilly RFC are in the Dragons region. Yep, we do know. We won the league and we won the League Cup. Oh, you didn't.
did
You
that.
wasn't sure, was you? No.
I did that. I thought they were going to Cardiff. I apologise, Caerphilly. I will.
Or maybe that's what he's referring to then. You're
I will write that wrong in the future. Very sorry.
Well, I knew they were in the Dragons region anyway. He says, we won the league unbeaten and we won the League Cup. Great season for the Green Army. Great show, by the way. Thank you very much, Mr. Air Conditioning. The Bishop of Durham says, I've only just discovered you, lads. Do come back next season. Oh, okay then. Fine, we will.
Arm twisted.
Maybe. Well, we probably will, won't we?
Yeah,
Andy Steph said, always a good pod. You guys deserve some wins next season. Yeah, we do, actually. Stick with it, he says. Okay, fine. We'll be back. Over on Apple Podcasts, Aaron12388, don't think that's his real name, but anyway, says, really good podcast. I've enjoyed it all season. Keep up the good work. He also mentions whether he's not sure whether to renew his season ticket because of the coaching setup. I understand that.
Yeah.
But, hopefully you listen to David as well. I think we got to stick with it. We got to give him a chance. The recruitment is positive. I do agree. I am happy with our recruitment. There's still some negativity surrounding our recruitment, but personally, I think we've done well considering where we are to sign the players that we've signed. Yeah. We've spoken about this, Gavin. We're happy so far. I know we said it last season, but this does feel like we're properly addressing all areas. It does feel like we're properly addressing the front five. It didn't really feel like that last season, did it? No,
the front five, I think, we've done really well, personally. Strengthened by the fact we've had Brodie come through strongly this season. But then, and I'm sure there's some criticism, I think Seb Davis is an improvement on what we have. Yeah. Levi Douglas, I think, is a good showreel player. But if he can stay fit and we can bring him on in the last 20 minutes of games, that's a great signing as well. And having two Welsh international props isn't a bad thing either, is it?
I think Levi Douglas is, I think I spoke to you about this on the group chat. For me, he's an impact player. He's someone to have on the bench rather than every week starting, because that's how he's been used at Biarritz.
And at Bath.
Yeah, people forget it's a 23-man game rugby. Your bench is just as important as your starting 15, so you need guys to come on and make an impact. And that's something that hasn't happened with the Dragons this season. As you well know, Gav, we've had so many conversations about it. Our benches that we've put out over the season have been so weak.
It's why depth is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's why that if we brought in another 4 players now, I would be happier. Need an outside centre, need a 10 for me. Probably could do another. Well, no back 3 players. I'm all right with another back row wouldn't hurt, and another second row wouldn't hurt. Just depth, but
yeah. Fair enough. So thank you to everyone who's left their reviews. We really appreciate it. It seems many of you listen to us and you want us to continue next season, which is great, because I thought when we did this pod that we'd be talking into the void, or maybe 3 people would be listening and that'd be it. But no, we seem to have a decent following and people want to hear us again. So that's really nice, actually. So if you like what we do, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Or if you prefer to watch us or listen to us on YouTube, then don't forget to subscribe to the Wrap YouTube channel. Okay, moving on to the news desk then, Gav, and some sad news to start with, I'm afraid. Dual code Wales international Mark Jones has died at the age of just 59. Jones was an uncompromising forward from Tredegar. He died after suffering a heart attack in the gym in Qatar. The number 8 played for clubs such as Tredegar Ironsides, Ebbw and Pontypool, and he also became a Neath legend thanks to his dynamism with and without the ball. He was a tough guy, wasn't he? Really tough guy.
Exceptionally hard man.
Absolutely. Ebbw said in a statement, Mark was adored by players and supporters during his time as a player, and even more so after he left. Mark, you were a legend of this club, and you will always be remembered as one of our greatest characters to ever pull on a jersey. We will never see your like again. You had a family connection with Mark Jones, didn't you, Gav?
Well, he knew my dad through Tredegar, basically. My dad was generation before him.
Yeah. But it was very sad news, wasn't it, this?
Oh, hugely sad, yeah. And a lovely bloke. Really kind of unassuming for a bloke of his size and his ferocity on the field. Absolutely, kind of off the field, just gentle and unassuming and a lovely bloke. But also, just I used to love watching that Leaf side of the late 80s, early 90s. That was just hard men playing the game at its most physical, and he was absolute epitome of it.
Yeah, I think he broke Ian Goff's eye socket once, didn't he? I'm sure I read that. Oh dear, you were not one to go on the wrong side of him
He
on
had
the field.
he had the most ferocious handoff of any player I've ever seen. It just used to, those mantis shrimps that shoot out at speed. It was just like his arm would extend and people would just be bouncing off. It just, and he's a real Gwent guy, and kind of it's just a massive shame because he's so young. He's barely older than me. Like,
There's no age 59, is there?
no,
It's no age at all. So yeah, very sad news, and our thoughts and condolences go to Mark's family and friends. Okay, in other news then, the Wales squad to Japan has been named. As expected, Matt Sherratt from Cardiff is head coach, along with Adam Jones, Kevin Jenkins, and former Dragons coaches T. Rees Thomas and Danny Wilson. So we had 5 Dragons called up. That was more than I was expecting, to be honest with you. Elliot D, Ben Carter, Aaron Wainwright, Roger Williams, and Chris Coleman. In the words of Jamie Lawson, I wasn't expecting that. So this is what Danny Wilson had to say about Chris Coleman's call-up. Adam Jones had a big say on that selection, and he did a lot of work in terms of looking at footage. He's somebody who falls into the bracket of, let's have a look, because he started a lot of regional games. He's a big man, and he could be one for the future. Look, Gav, people can say what they want about Chris Coleman, right? And I have to admit, I haven't always been a fan. But if you've got the approval of Adam Jones, then you must be doing something right, because that's a pretty good endorsement to have, isn't it?
Yes, I also think it probably speaks to the paucity of tight ends in the Welsh game anyway. And Chris Coleman, Will Griff, John, all the guys who are playing tight end, I'm not convinced by any of them. But if you're going to learn how to be a tight end prop at international level, well, learning from Adam Jones is perhaps the person to do it from, isn't it? It's so let's see what Bond can do with him, because he is, he's probably one of the greatest tight ends of the last 20 years. And having him whispering into your ear, telling you what to do, I'd take that. I'm really pleased for Chris, because yes, we haven't always been super positive about this work here, but he's tried really hard and he hasn't given up all season.
He's a trier. You got to give him that. He is a trier.
And it must have been tough, like this season for him at times, because he's had to play more rugby than perhaps he was expecting to.
And I think that's a good point, and people need to bear this in mind. He has had to shoulder a really heavy burden because of all the injuries. And don't forget the retirements as well of guys like Lloyd Fairbrother, Leon Brown, our hip's been injured, Luke Yendel's been injured. So he's had to play a hell of a lot of games, probably more than what he should have done. So, and I think he has improved this season, actually. I will hold my answer, but like I said, I haven't been a huge fan of Chris over the years, but this season, I think he's been solid and he has much improved. And I'm pleased for him. I just hope this will improve him. You would think so, under the guidance of Adam Jones and Danny Wilson, to be fair. Both very good forwards coaches.
He's probably played, 20-odd games at tight end and played most of those games as well. The guy's done a shift and he's earned it for nothing like that. And the whole point of this tour is to have a look at some players who perhaps you wouldn't generally have a look at, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's why there's guys in the team like that, like the young lad from Scotland, Max Page, and all those guys. It's an opportunity to look at them in a slightly lower risk environment.
Disappointing that Brodie Coughlin and Hugh Anderson didn't get a call up. Mind, I was hoping they would be included, but
Hugh Anderson's a big omission for me. I think some of the guys who selected at hooker, I don't see what the selectors see in them.
Well, to be fair, Belcher has been consistently solid for Cardiff for the past 2 or 3 years. Whether he's international standard, I don't know, but he has been excellent for Cardiff.
That's the thing. He's a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10 player every week for Cardiff. I'm just not sure that's international class, but then, how many do we have that are truly international class at the minute? So,
do you remember when Belcher was at the Dragons?
No. Well,
People forget
I
that.
don't
So
know.
Liam Belcher came from Cardiff to the Dragons. It was under the Bernard Jackman era. He was only with us for one season. He was okay, but I remember thinking, oh, he's a bit small. He's a bit on the small side. But I never saw him as a Welsh international. But fair play, I think for the past 2 or 3 years, he's been excellent for Cardiff. He's a really good captain. You watch him when he's captain. He's always in the ref shirt, chipping away. Very good captain, very good communicator, Liam Belcher. We can learn from
he's
that.
had a couple of caps, hasn't he, already?
For Wales, no, I don't think
No,
he has.
no, I thought he'd gone the squad. I lose track. For me, the first cap off the ranks, clearly Dewey Lake. And Elliott is second for me. And then third choice falls behind, Belcher is probably there for third choice.
Yeah, he's been in Wales under 20 squad, but he's never had a senior cap. So, yeah, really pleased for Chris and for the Dragons boys called up. So we need a win, don't we? Matt Sherritt had a free pass for the Six Nations. He hasn't got a free pass this time around. No. He's got to get a win. Simple as that. This losing run, it's got to come to an end. It's got to come to an end. It can't carry on. So
we've got to start turning around that, because otherwise our World Cup draw is going to be beyond horrific.
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. The Dragons leavers list has been put out. 14 players leaving the club. Quite a lot, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting that many, I'll be honest. But
if we consider we lost 3 in the season as well.
Yeah, so these were the players on the leavers list. Dimitri Arhip, Tane Basham, we know about Cardiff. Yeah. Dane Blacker, Scarlets. Joe Davis, Lloyd Evans, Ashton Hewitt, Paula Latu, Dan Lydiate, retired but will take up coaching at the Dragons. George Knott, we expect him to go to Cardiff. Will Reid to Worcester. Josh Reynolds, Josh Thomas, Jordan Williams, and George Young. What do you make of that list, Gav?
Yeah, there's lots of solid pros on that, but there's, with the exception of Tane, but who I think we've actually mitigated for it leaving. There's no one where I've gone, oh, really? We could have, I think we're missing a trick there. I think all the guys who've left, we've replaced, and we've replaced with probably upgrades. So yeah. I'm not, and I know lots of people like Joe Davis, but I think we've replaced him with 2 better players. And
I think it's time for Joe to move on now. He's been a brilliant turn for the club, but yeah, I do agree. No disrespect to Joe.
No, and George Knott, a solid player, but I think we're bringing him better.
He's a grafter, George Knott. He doesn't give enough grunt for me, I would say. But the other thing I would add, Gav, done excellent work for Dragons in the community. He attended a lot of awards nights. He's helped out the All-Stars, the wheelchair team, and he has been very active in the community with the Dragons. He's a nice guy.
And I know he's been involved in junior rugby in the region and done lots of really positive things, you know. And so that's great. But also, we talked about game line success. Well, David did. He just doesn't get over the game line for me.
I think Cardiff again a good solid.
And you look at Seb Davis and Levi Douglas are designed to do that. They're bigger weapons. That's why we've brought those guys in.
Yeah. Best wishes to all the leavers. I just want to give a shout out to Will Reid. So Will Reid sent us a lovely message on the DMs. He thanked us for the support and he wished the pod all the very best for the future. Very classy of him. Fair play, Will. And we wish you all the very best at Worcester. I think that's a great move for him. I really do. And he'll get regular rugby. He'll play alongside Twickenham hero Lloyd Williams as well. You'll learn loads off him. I think it's disappointing to lose Will because obviously, he came through the academy, a local boy. But I do think the writing was probably on the wall when De Beer came in and he had a year left on his Dragons contract. So the club has agreed to, release him early, and he's going to play for Worcester. He'll get regular rugby. I think he'll do well there. So good luck to him. And it was a very classy message as well.
I think that's the level for him at the minute. I think that's the level for him at the minute. I've got a question though, Jamie, right? I think we've left ourselves a bit short at 10 now. Lloyd Evans is gone, which, he's another player who hasn't really done what he needed to do this season, so I understand that. Got De Beer coming in, who, I played very well for Cardiff last season, but hasn't had a sniff this season, so I'm not really getting, I'm just concerned that there's, and I know Angus can play there, but Angus is a 15 for me, and is better at the 15. He's not a 10. He's not a 10 who's going to unlock the backs. So we need someone else at 10. I did jokingly say the David Buttress, Reece Patchell, but that would be ideal. But you just want somebody who's going to unlock those backs. And I know there's lots of talk about Jack Lloyd, who looked great against Ebervale, but playing Ebervale and playing Munster are two very different
He's been very good for
experiences.
Newport, though, Gav, in fairness. He does look a very talented player. I don't think he's anywhere near ready for pro rugby, mind. So if
No,
anyone is saying get him in the Dragons team now, no, he needs a couple of more years at Newport. But I think we should sign him on the books, definitely.
I totally agree with that, but the SRC is a huge step up to go into Toman Park
URC, yeah, I know
yeah,
what you mean,
or the RDS or whatever, isn't it?
yeah. It is a step up from the SRC to the
Yeah.
URC, definitely. So the Argus reported that we're looking at the 13, which is quite right. I would have said that's where the marquee sign-in needs to be, but it doesn't look like from what Dave was saying we're going to get one. He didn't rule out completely, but it sounds unlikely now.
No, I did.
So,
Yeah, I'll probably not get a shirt with David Havili's name printed on it.
No, forget about that one. And we're looking at a scrum half, an experienced scrum half. And the Argus said we're looking at a back rower. Now, I think, why are we looking at a back rower? I don't think that's an area of need for us right now. I think I would go for a 10. Now, a lot of supporters have talked about Reece Patchell. What I would say is we did have conversation with Reece Patchell before, and he did turn us down, and he went to Japan. So you kind of think, well, why would he come back to us? But I don't know if the club are interested in him.
He wants to be back in Wales. I read an interview with him.
Do you think he would come to the Dragons, though?
Well, I think we can offer the same money as everyone else. I don't think he's going to go to Scarlets, which is where he's from. He's a West Walian guy.
Cardiff, isn't he? I think Patchell's Cardiff, isn't he?
I thought he was West Walian, wasn't he?
No, I'm sure he came from Cardiff.
Well, he speaks better Welsh than I expected someone from Cardiff to speak. He's probably a Glantaff boy. He speaks really good Welsh.
Yes, he went to Glantaff.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, his Welsh is excellent.
From Blake's of Penarth, yeah.
Oh yeah. But Cardiff he's not going to go to because they've got Johan Lloyd and Callum Sheedy there. He's an upgrade on both of those, but that's neither here nor there. So I think where's he going to play rugby if he wants to play rugby in Wales? He'll play for us. He'd get more rugby with us than anyone else.
Yeah, I think the wages and the injury record is a massive turn-off. But then I think, well, if he was to sign for us for 1 year and it was a decent deal, and it didn't cost the earth, then maybe that's something we should be thinking about. But we'll wait and see recruitment-wise what the Dragons do, because David said recruitment is not finished. So,
but the back row thing, I was thinking about this the other day. We lack what I would describe an out-and-out 8.
So you think we do need a back rower then?
Well, it won't hurt because Wayno is an 8. But he's a modern 8, I suppose. He's a utility 8.
Right. Two words. Yeah. Solomon Fanaki. He does exist. I know we didn't see him, but don't forget he is. Well, he should hopefully, fingers crossed, come back.
Yeah, but I'm that's good. I know Gareth has claimed he's seen him physically.
I have as well.
Yeah, I know he have, but okay, maybe, but just taking into account lots of what's been said around there. I think we do need somebody, and probably somebody who can bring on with 20 minutes to go, who's just going to batter at the game line, because Wayno isn't that player. Wayno's quicker feet, acceleration.
But again, that sounds like a job for Fanaki. But will he be fit? That's the question. That sounds exactly like Fanaki was brought in to do.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, that's fine. But we haven't seen him yet.
No.
I think there's an argument that for me. There's a 10. I'm not sure about the 9 because I think we've got the options at 9.
Yeah, I think they're looking for an experienced scrum half to back up Rodri, because we got the young guns. We got Shea Hope, who's actually coming on really well now. Morgan Lloyd, I'm very excited about, and Logan Franklin as well with the Wales under-20s. So,
I think I would give Shea Hope his head now and have him as the backup personally.
Okay, fair enough. The signing of Welsh international Seb Davis, that's been confirmed. It feels like old news now, doesn't it? But it was actually confirmed last week. 28-year-old. He's younger than I thought. For some reason, I thought he was older. He's been.
I thought he was 30. Yeah.
No, he's not. He's 28. He signed a 2-year deal. He said, I'm excited about the move as the future looks bright for the Dragons. The club has made plenty of positive signings and have a great, hard-working core group already there. I'm also excited, he said, about playing for the loyal fans of Ronnie Parade. The atmosphere is always brilliant when I've played in the past, and I look forward to now having their support right behind me. You're lukewarm about the Seb Davis sign, I know, but I'm happy with this. I think it's a solid sign-in, bags of experience, Welsh international, and better than some of the lock options that we've had previously without naming names.
He's an upgrade. You know,
Yes.
I've never been massively blown away by him as a player, but he's an upgrade for me. So, you know, what are you going to do? Like we said, we need a better squad. He's better than what we had. So,
absolutely, I think it's a decent signing for us.
Because he can play 8 as well. I'm not.
We don't want him. We don't want him at 8.
I'm less convinced by him at 8 than I am.
Well, that was Gatland. Wasn't it? The Gatland experiment. And no, I mean, he's a good ball carrier, Seb Davis, but I do not want to see him in the back row unless it's at 6. But I know you're very funny in you about locks playing a blind side. You don't like that at all, do you?
No, because they're very different positions. They're very different positions. I love Shane Lewis's because Shane Lewis is a proper 6.
Yeah.
He just knocks people over and he's a shithouse. That's all he wants from a 6.
No, I know that's something you don't like, but
well, I'll get over it.
Yeah. Moving on then, as David mentioned, it was the awards ceremony, which he didn't go to. I thought that was quite interesting. So these are the winners. Academy Player of the Season, Evan Minto. Women's Player of the Season, Caitlin Lewis from Gwalia Lightning, I think.
Yeah.
Try of the season was Hugh Anderson's try against Newcastle. That was superb. The pace he showed.
Yeah.
Terrific. Special recognition awards that went to the Dragons All-Stars, the all-inclusive team.
Rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil James Community Award went to Ronnie Davis and Mike Weedle. Club Person of the Year went to Ashley Davis. Young Player of the Year went to Ryan Woodman. Very talented player, one for the future. Coaches Player of the Season, this will not surprise you, Anira Owen.
Yeah.
Who has been quietly brilliant.
He was your player of the season, wasn't he? Yeah.
Well, I said it was a toss between him and Rodri Williams. I actually went for Rodri Williams. I think Gav said Anira.
Yeah, it was Gareth who said. Yeah, it was Gareth.
It could have been a toss-up between those two. I think Anira is. I still feel a bit sorry for him. I don't think we get the best out of him.
Well, I think we're playing the wrong rugby for him.
I agree. Yeah.
He needs more space. He needs to be operating in more space. He's not Jamie Roberts.
No.
You know, he's a Ben Thomas player in that he's more creative. He's a pivot.
Yes.
But we're giving him the ball in too much space and he's having to take the ball into contact.
No, I completely agree. But yeah, Anira is 100% Dragons through and through. So it doesn't surprise me. And then the Players Player of the Season, who do you think that was? Any ideas?
No, I did read it, but it's fallen out of my head. Yeah, Waino seems fair. I don't think he's had the best season, but he's had a solid season, hasn't he? You know, because he's never less than 7.5 out of 10.
He makes us better than you. When he's not playing, you do notice it. But it's Waino, isn't it? We all know how brilliant he is, so not too much of a surprise. Right, Gav, that is a wrap. Busy pod. We'll be back. I was going to say this is our last pod of the season, but when I say that, something happened. I'm not going to say it anymore. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say that's it, we're finished, because you just never know. So instead, I'm going to say we'll be back whenever. Yeah. And then it's open then, isn't it?
I will say to listeners, if you're involved in the grassroots club and you'd like us to talk to you about your club over the summer, we'd love to do that. We enjoyed our episode with Stefan Neutradiga. We'd be happy to do it with clubs in the region.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we were talking to some community clubs and for whatever reason it didn't really materialise. We didn't get enough community clubs, and that's something we really like to do, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm a huge advocate for grassroots rugby as a you, and we'd love to speak to the clubs within our region, be them the big clubs or the small clubs. We really don't mind.
No, quite right. If you're a grassroots club, you listen to this and get in touch, we'd love to speak to you. Okay, then that'll be it. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you to our friends at Riverside Sports Bar for their continued support of the podcast. And again, thank you to our listeners who have supported us, the messages, the reviews we've had. It's taken me by surprise, actually, and I'm quite blown away by the messages we've had. They've generally been lovely. Wasn't expecting that, fair play. But yeah, we've had some very nice comments. And yes, we probably will continue next season. We're going to do this all again. It'll be painful, probably. It'll be underwhelming for us, but we're probably going to do it all again, Gavin, we?
Oh, of course we will.
The public has spoken. They want us to continue. So that's what we're going to do.
I think when people say they don't want us to do it, we'll stop doing it. But until then,
yes,
if
you say to me, I don't want to do this anymore, that'll be it. By the way, I won't be doing this.
It's fine. There's an audience, and I enjoy doing it. Just Dragons, anyone from Dragons, if you're listening, just a better season.
Yeah, that's all we ask. Just a couple more wins and make us more competitive. Don't make us repeat ourselves every single week with the same shit, because it's boring.
And Gareth needs a victory pod.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything now about victory pod, because it feels like I've cursed him now, doesn't it? So, I know. I'm conscious of that now. Anyway, that's us done now. Until next time, whenever that will be. Until next time, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye all.
That was The Dragon's Lair, in association with the Riverside Sports Bar Newport, an American-style bar with a proper Welsh feel.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Memorial Day doorbuster deals are here at Lowe's. Right now, Rewards members save $80 on the Master Forge 4-burner gas grill, now just $149. Plus, Rewards members save $900 on the Lowe's exclusive Hisense French door refrigerator, now only $999. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/26. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at Lowe's.com/terms. Subject to change.